Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. The next episode of Red Valkyrie is about to start. Hey, welcome everyone to a... Did you just sneeze? No matter what I do, these intros are just getting worse and worse. Welcome to another episode of Red Valkyrie. I know. We have a special guest today with Hugin sitting here. He's kind of an asshole. We'll see how long he plays along, but I am a pirate girl. I needed a parrot. Yeah. And of course, over this way, we've got my co-host, Cyborg Valkyrie. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm the other thing with wings.
Very nice. And we are here to cover the super awesome campaign Raven Nevermore with another Shay down at the bottom. So how's it going, Shay?
Doing good, Shay. How's it going?
It's Cyborg. Great. This is wonderful. It sounds like we're crazy people.
Yes.
So why don't we just jump right into exactly what is Raven Nevermore?
Yeah, so Raven Nevermore is a bleak and dreary dark fantasy tale of a man struggling with a repressed legacy and fighting to gain agency over his identity. So we follow Corvin Moore, an elite lawman, as he faces off against criminal shifters, fiends, and spirits. And Corvin Moore will be forced to confront this mysterious heritage in a continued effort to reject a destiny he successfully kept buried in his subconscious for his entire life. So what starts as a sort of mundane encounter with the local mob, it starts to spiral out of control and turns into a soul-shattering, epic-scale battle that could leave the supernatural. I was looking at your scroll there. That could leave the world in perpetual darkness. So it's a sprawling tale for sure. It's on issue 6 of 9 right now. So. All 9 are produced though, so it's a campaign per issue. There was reasons for that we can get into as we go through this stream. Yeah. But this is like it's 2/3 of the way through the campaign, so it's just super exciting to even have gotten this far so far. So yes, it is a mature readers series. There's some content that is just it's not so much just that it's graphic or there's like themes in it, but I just felt like just from a narrative standpoint, like a storytelling standpoint, it's a little out there. So it's unconventional storytelling is how I see it. And so there you go.
Right. We require our audience to be old, not necessarily mature.
Good. So. Well, hey, I'm all for that. I'm all for that in life. So yeah, you got the first issue here for free. If you want to give it a try, you want to see what it's all about. This is a very so if I were to change anything about how I wrote this series, I would have front loaded this series with a little bit more about what it was going to be in the last half of the series. So this first issue is very much about the mundane part of the story. I was sort of subverting expectations, but it's like naive me in 2009 writing something and then going, well, shit, no, I need people to know what's going to happen, like or buy into the series that's going to happen 5 episodes from now, 5 issues from now. But this gives you a sense of just what world this takes place in too. And by the end of it, there's just a kind of a hint of there's something else going on here below the surface. So, yeah.
I really love the cover art of that first issue. Well, I'm sorry that you don't, but you don't get a say.
No, I took that as approval. So agreement. Yeah, the cover art was a fun part to kind of get around to. It's like I've always wanted to make comics, but I want to bring something new to comics in the sense that I want art to be part of the comic making process too. So I want to get someone who wasn't so much an illustrator, but someone who came more from the fine art side of things. My background is as a fine artist, English, philosophy, but I wanted to find someone who was more into like woodcuts. And so this artist right here, Samuel Casale, is a Brazilian who was a woodcut artist, a fine artist. And he was awesome enough to, I'm like, I need something that's kind of vectory, like vector graphics, but with your woodcut style. And I gave him like a breakdown for each of the covers. And he nailed it, every single one first pass. And it was, I can't be more thankful because it gives the series a sense of, it's just, I wanted it to be different. I want people to kind of kind of see this and go and feel something more old about it. So what we got here, we got some previews of the pages for issue 1, 2, 3, and 4. I tried to use the least spoilery of the pages for people who are kind of piggybacking on campaigns. And there she is. There's Shay right there. as Alakai, the swashbuckling, the pirate, and there's some other stuff going on there, but I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, the preview pages here is... It has to stop at issue 4, even though it's for campaign 6, because it literally by I wouldn't want to say episode all the time. By issue 5, it turns into something where I can't even show pages. It's so dense. It's so densely packed with visual reveals. Like there's very condensed storytelling, in my opinion. So a page has meaningful reveals. I tried to every 2-page spread that you flip to. I wanted to tell a scene or a moment, and in that moment I wanted it to feel like you wanted to know the next piece. So if you flip the page and you didn't get it, it's like you want to be there for a couple more page flips, and hopefully those reveals get you to just want to keep going into this tale as it spirals out of control.
And I think it's a really interesting look that you kind of gone, because it's like you said, it kind of has that old feel, but it also doesn't have a super saturated palette. It's not as bright as a lot of the mainstream comics we have right now. I know, right? They're not great. He's so good at picking up on cues.
It's a little sidekick.
Hey, Hukin, dead body.
Don't try to make him laugh.
Really
So the joke is anytime we've been watching like ID or anything like that, and they say like the woman's body was never found,
oh dear,
he has a tendency to laugh. And then we make sure that the door is latched a little extra tight
on his cage. Wire it shut.
Great.
And our doors that behind whatever room we're in, just barricade them up. I know.
Oh man. Yeah, this stuff right here, the bonus content, is something I added this campaign just because it's kind of getting deep in the run of the 9 campaigns, where I felt like I from here to the end, I need to offer something additional with each campaign, just to give people that extra bit that they can buy into. A big piece of these campaigns is about the world building. I want to be able to set up the foundation where I can tell other stories in the setting that takes place in Raven Nevermore. And this breach space content here was stuff that I was working on at the same time. I was exploring just the idea of the world building, but I was also just trying to nail there's like the comics, like the Figments piece here. They were 1-page comics that were in a magazine, a monthly periodical, and there would be themes for the magazine, and the artist and I, that's the same artist as the Raven Nevermore, so Emmanuel Zersh Javier. And every month I'm like, hey dude, do you want to do this? We got a whole page to ourselves. Let's just do one and done, one-shot stories. And it was for me to really experiment with compressed storytelling, because again, I wanted to pack more information into less, because this entire series spiraled out of control for me. It was meant to be a 6-part series, 22 pages each, and it blew up to be a 9-part series, 30 pages each. So the effort that went into this breach space stuff was me really trying to hone in on how I wanted to do storytelling and kind of control myself. To be honest, I was out of control. I had quit my job to sort of do these projects.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I just wanted to focus on creativity, and I just couldn't do that. I was part of the startup world, and you're working like 14 hours a day, and it grinded me down. And I just wanted a break from that and do comics. I wanted to, and not just I just wanted I wanted to learn the production of comic making, and Raven Nevermore was kind of the catalyst for me to kind of figure out each piece along the way. And it finally got to the point where it's like, okay, now I got to figure out printing and distribution. And that's thankfully crowdfunding came around. Crowdfunding was not offered in Canada. Well, I mean, Kickstarter wasn't offered in Canada until 2015 or something like that. Oh, wow. Yeah. And Indiegogo was more tech focused. So I was sort of dead in the water for 2 or 3 years as I got a corporate job. So then I got sucked into that for the last 8 years. But yeah, I would keep coming back to being able to get to this one day, where everything is in a sustainable place, and the making of comics, there's a control behind it where I can feel confident that this is a repeatable process. So this experience is a lot about just growing that the confidence, along the way. So yeah. It's a collection of the webcomics and flash fiction. I did a challenge. There's a 30-day challenge, write 30 flash fictions in 30 days. It's 2012 or something. So I just threw them all into that book too, and it's all content that just fleshes out the world around the setting. So, which I call Breach Space. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. And I like that you are kind of giving a little bit extra that's, I know for some people, and it depends on what your life is like, but for some people it can be difficult, especially if you've got something like Raven Nevermore that's this kind of episodic, like continual growing book. It can be really hard to be like, I want to read it, but I only have a couple of minutes. And if I start, like, I'm not going to get anything done that I need to get done. So you put it to the side, and then it gets put to the side over and over and over again, and it takes longer for you to read. So it's kind of cool that you're like, we understand that life happens. This is something that goes on, and we're giving you breach space where you can have like one-offs. So if you're waiting for water to boil so you can have tea or something, you can have something to look over and still kind of get that comic feel when you don't have as much time, because I mean a lot of people just don't have time anymore.
Well, right. And if you have Figments, that's like the short little, one-page stories that he was talking about. That's 28 pages. And then Chronicles is, I guess, 6, making up 132.
Yeah, 6 short stories from 6 different authors. I wanted to experiment with the idea of I had like a world Bible going on at the time from, I don't know, 2002 until Raven Nevermore kicked off. It was the official thing for this setting, but it was actually the original idea was to get a tabletop thing going, like a game going.
Wow.
Yeah, so this has a huge history before it became what it became. It's just I had so much kind of content built up around this world where I'm like, I'm just going to tell stories myself. I'm just going to start doing something and see where this goes. But Chronicles was me sending the kind of like snippets of information about this world setting to other writers, and then saying, do you guys want to partake in this? Like, do you want to like see what you come up with? And if you're interested in some sort of theme, then let me help flesh that out, and then away you go. I don't know if you're all familiar with the Wild Card series from the 80s and 90s. So George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones, of course, guy. Before Games of Thrones, he was doing this series called Wild Cards. It was a novel collection, and it was basically him and a bunch of his sci-fi nerd friends in the 80s. It was a tabletop group. They were just gaming the superhero role-playing game, and they were all kind of famous-ish and famous sci-fi writers, and they all just started writing short stories for this world called Wild Cards. And so George R. Martin released this as an editor, and so that was my inspiration as a teenager growing through the 90s and into the early 2000s. It was like, it would be cool if I could create a world and other people could play in this world, and even vice versa. Like I always when I read things and I get deep into them, like I always imagine like, what story would I tell with this character? Or what story would I tell with this IP? And that fanfic idea, that kind of the ability to prompt someone's imagination to kind of go into other places with this thing you create. That's also kind of what Breach Space is about. Is like, I want people to kind of go off on their own and think of ideas,
That's interesting.
No, that's actually really cool that you're giving people that kind of springboard.
Yeah. It's a love of the public domain. There's a lot of talk about like, a lot of things are going to start freeing up, and oh man, absolutely. I would take control of some of those properties. There's always that risky thing of like copyright versus trademark and all that stuff. But, Lovecraft opened up a lot of his Cthulhu mythos and stuff like that. Even back in the 20s, like him and Robert E. Howard from Conan were just sharing stuff as pen pals, and that group of friends just like built worlds together. And, there was a lot less like legal crap going on about this kind of stuff, like it really stifling creativity. So big fan of that too. So a lot of these comments, like the Breach Space stuff, is actually released as Creative Commons. So share it, you know what I mean? And do it, reprint it if you want. I don't care, right? But it's just a different outlook on how this all works. And anyway, so to talk about the fulfillment stage here, it's I've kind of got a cadence to things now. The first campaigns were not fun. They were fun, but they, when you're out of the gate and you have no idea what you're doing. The first one failed. It was for a trade that collected 3, and I was going to release 3 trades. But it's just, man, you're a nobody coming on the scene, and 2017, it was rough. So when I split this into issues, I'm a big data guy. I'm a data strategist in my real life, like in marketing. And so it was more like, let's do tests every issue and let's try to find out what the model is here that can be repeatable. So every campaign had some test I was mapping to. I was doing A/B tests essentially across campaigns for the non-marketing folks. Is you basically try A, you see what happens, and then you try B, and then you compare, and then you do the better of the options, or you do a mix of the best of the options. And it's now at a 3-month cadence or something like that. So I can get a campaign at the door. I'm doing 60-day campaigns now instead, but generally when I've done the campaign, it takes me 4 to 6 weeks to be able to get the funding, print the books, receive them, package them up, and then send them out. And then I started something with this campaign and the last one, sorry, issue 5, where the first 30 days I don't consider them the official start of the campaign. It's kind of like, here's the first 30 days for the backers who trust me to just jump on. And then the last 30 days are like, this is me trying to get new people onto the campaign. So I split it up into 2 strategies because I have the data to kind of let me know that in the first 30 days, I have like 80% of backers will come back at this point. So there's a very good sticky rate on the campaigns. The confidence goes up a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. And then you spend the last half of the campaign going, what can I try differently now to get more eyeballs on the campaign? So I try to put this up front, make transparent, I'm fulfilling 5, I'm running 6, and I'm ready to do 7. And here's a timeline for people. So, yeah.
I think that's really important that you're going, you're being as transparent as possible, because that for new people who are going to find your project and maybe back, they have a proven track record and they can see this is where you're going. This is what we've already done and what we're going to continue to do, which helps with confidence. But I also like the fact that you kind of dedicate the first 30 days to your fans, essentially. Mm-hmm. You're very customer focused on okay, so you guys have been here, you guys have, been since the first. He loves to add in his 2 cents.
I'm listening. You give me all the pointers you want, buddy.
But you're kind of giving them that, I know that you guys have been with me, so let me do what I can to try and make it apparent that I appreciate that. And then afterwards, it's like, all right, well, let's see if there's anything else I can do to maybe get some new eyes on it, because obviously the more eyes that you have on a campaign, the better, and the better it's going to do, the more successful it gets to be.
Yeah. You always have to look for a way to grow, your campaigns, like campaign to campaign. And the benefit of going 30 days while you're fulfilling on the prior campaign is, at least in the Kickstarter, the way I'm doing it on Kickstarter is that I still have the channel open for releasing updates to the prior campaign. So what I've discovered helps is that by me updating the prior campaign about here's the state of the shipping, the packages are here, they're packed, I've gone out and shipped them. Every time that in that same update, I can say, and by the way, right, the next campaign is already here. I've launched it today. Jump on over. So in the first 48 hours, it's there's 50% of them. It's guaranteed at this point. And it's a big boost, to kind of just the confidence. And I'm not stressed about the campaigns anymore. So it gives me a lot more room to now really experiment with, okay, now how do I multiply this by 10, right? Or whatever the number might be, but it's time to scale at this point. I'm just very strategic, and I'm very, about every step of the way. And I've heard you're either data people or you're marketing people. So I'm happy to share things behind the scenes if you want. It's up to you too, but yeah.
Yeah, honestly, so Sai and I are a little bit more marketing. Well, I'm more marketing. Sai's a lot more data. It's the spreadsheets and the price.
Hell yeah, spreadsheets.
Very happy.
For the win. Yeah.
But I think that it's really important that people understand that having both sides is kind of essential for a campaign to be super successful. But if you do lack in one, if you are much more focused on data, and you pay attention to your customer base, then you can use the data to make up for what you maybe lack a little bit in marketing was, and vice versa. If you're not super great at tracking at all of the numbers, but you're paying attention to your marketing trends and how that's kind of working out with your audience, like your customers are going to tell you if they're happy or not. Your customers are going to tell you if you're doing the right thing or not, and that's what you really just kind of need to focus on.
Yeah, very true.
It's so good to hear that you're customer centric. That's exactly what we want.
Yeah, you got to listen to the customer, man. It's not. It's I mean, because and then the customer base will scale, you know, and so you really got to be able to screen out the noise of it. But I mean, you gotta listen to the criticism. Bad is good in the world of customer information. So you want some? So it's being able to kind of filter out the important bits that you got to react to, you got to pivot to, and then pivot fast. Just like find something out and then try something. You got to measure it. If you don't measure it, you got no way to validate whether or not your hypotheses are right or not. So your customers, there's so many people out there that can help you with that. You just got to be open to that criticism and go. So
absolutely. And don't take it. I mean, honestly, somebody telling you something good is great because it gives you a good ego boost. But when somebody tells you something that you're not doing well, a lot of people get down on themselves and take it really personally, when in reality, it's somebody got down on something about your campaign. That's an opportunity. That's something that you can turn around. And if you can divorce your emotional side from it and actually look at what was said, you can decide, is this person maybe being a little bit overly dramatic, which is something that happens. But there's also the fact that, you know, maybe they had a point. Maybe there's something in a way that you worded something or a way that you kind of went about doing something that didn't quite pan out like you thought it would, didn't register the way that you thought it would with the audience. And that's something that you can correct and something that you can make better for the next time you do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go through all of your perks, because you've got some really cool ones. Yeah, right?
Ready to go. So the first perk here is just digital. So you want the digital issue of issue 6. There's 23 backers already a few days in. I will say data-wise, again, it's 10% of the goal, essentially, comes from digital sales. I'll say even from a strategic perspective, that offsets. I keep my goal it's very tight to what I need to print and ship. I've paid out of pocket twice out of these 5 campaigns, and the spreadsheets always calibrate again, and I prepare me for the next one. But these digital sales mitigate a lot of that risk, because you're not sending a product out to people who back you for a digital sale. So all of that is just buffer room. And again, if you scale and that scales, then you're just scaling your buffer room. So that's the digital 6 right there.
With the exception of the artist and the colorist, then that's your only overhead when it's digital. So
and none of these campaigns pay for production at all. I'll be honest, I see some campaigns out there that have goals at my rate. Like this one is at 1,000, but I can go into why I chose 1,000 later, but it's always been around 2,000. So my real goal is 2,000 Canadian. And so, which of course is what, like a couple cents for American, but it's
but like $5, no problem.
it's pocket lint and
people donate a feather.
Hey, I'll take it. It's probably worth more than $100. So it's as long as it's an American parrot.
Scottish, sorry.
I don't even know what I'm saying at this point, and it doesn't matter. So we'll get back to it. So this piece here is so it's a breach space pack. So it's the issue 6 and breach space, and it's again pretty straightforward. It's to keep these things pretty. The title pretty much says what you're going to get here. I've added a lot more tiers here, so I don't want to confuse people along the way. I want to make things very clear if you're scrolling through and just trying to find the thing you need. So this is it. It's the single issue plus the bonus pack.
Sorry, moving along. I'm in a bunch of different screens.
This is what happens when Sai is producing.
That's all. Oh man!
See, Hugin's on my side. Fuck you.
No, that was.
You can really interpret that any way you want, right? Like the parrot, just like you'll just take whatever side your perception. I'm like, I'm subjectively going to say that you're on my side.
He is a very hostile Switzerland that nobody actually knows where he stands. He obviously takes a stance. They're just not sure which side. Yeah.
He's so chill and in agreement. Like he just he's just hanging out there.
He also can't see very well because the lights are off.
He sounds like a very excited kung fu bird. Wow.
It's like in slow motion.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm so sorry.
No
the
problem.
Print issue.
The print issue, the what everyone is presumably coming for when they come to this campaign, but it's almost like an equal single issue, and near the tail end of the campaign, people come in for the entire sets because there'll be the new eyeballs coming in. But yeah, this is for the single issue. I do throw in the PDF as a bonus on all of the print tiers, just because again, I got controversial opinions when it comes to digital files floating around, so I just figured get ahead of the something that's going to get out of your control anyways, and it's going to piss you off. So why not take agency over it and just say, no, I'm just going to give it out myself, and then do it with it what you will.
So if I can say one thing that I love about people who do that, if there's a lot of people that if you buy a physical copy, like I love having physical copies of comics that I really enjoy or that I think are interesting, because I like having something physical to show my support, right? But when it comes to reading, I hate reading physical comics. It drives me nuts. I'm especially if I'm trying to keep them nice. I don't want to have the physical because I don't want to have to thumb through it and everything, because I don't want to unintentionally bend a page or have something get marked up. And so being able to have a physical that I get to keep nice and kind of a collectory item,
right,
and then have a PDF so I can actually enjoy the story, that is my preferred. That's what I love. So I love the fact that you just kind of go, you know what, PDFs are going to get out there anyway, so screw it, here you go.
Yep. And absolutely agree. And I personally can't really go to digital, but I'm doing it more lately, like where I do get, like I'll get the Kickstarters and the Indiegogos come in, but if I get a PDF of it, I'm probably scanning through that first, and the other stuff just stays in the bag and goes on the shelf. So but I do like the feeling of flipping through something too, you know.
No, I can understand that.
I mean, if you're sold on that, then just buy 2 copies if they don't offer digital. But I mean, sometimes it's nice to have the digital because of portability. I mean, some comics are bigger, some comics are, you just don't want to take out on a bus, a train, whatever you're getting on, and you already got your iPad or whatever. So I could see that. I just wish that there was an easy way for people to password their PDFs and not have that leak out as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way to do it, but it's a pain in the ass.
It is.
Yeah. So we got the digital bundle here, so it's all of the issues as PDFs go out the door.
So it's 6 comics for $15.
You got it. Canadian.
No,
remember,
$12.
Whatever it is.
Okay, so
$12 American.
$2 American an issue is what you're saying.
Yes, for 30 pages plus 2 pages of bonus content at the end, which is like world building stuff. So
I'm sorry, I started to laugh because I thought she was saying $2 for the whole thing American. Ripping on your plastic currency again.
Right.
Her issue.
Just removing that first one. So we have for 13 American here, you got choose any 2 comics. So this was actually customer feedback as well, where there were customers that wanted the 2 print copies because saving one, reading the other, but also is getting to a point now where on the 6th campaign, and because these are coming out every 3 months, there have been now backers that go, wait, what just happened? Like I missed one, right? I missed 4, and it's like, okay, well, shoot, I need to find a way of increasing the amount of options on the side here without getting like overwhelming. But at the end of the day, if I don't do it, then I'm losing backers that have stuck around, but they're missing it. And I got it. And what was happening at the beginning of this campaign, I was like, okay, I'll just pick this thing and then I'll throw it in. Or and I was working out like weird side things I'd have to keep track of, right? But that's not scalable. So this at the end of the day is, just choose any 2. If you want the same 2, you got it. You want 1 and 4, you got it. You want 6 and 4, you got it. So yeah.
No, that's really smart.
Or 2 of number 6.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want. Yeah, and then that will scale down the line there, where it's just any 3, any 4, any 5. That way we can just skip past those one too. But this one here is the combination with breach space. You got digital bundle with breach space. That's okay, dude. You can keep going. I'm good to go. I'll keep up. You got the any 3, and then it's any 2 with the breach space. So this was because I didn't have it, but then customers, two of them, the two that backed this, were like, wait, I missed one, or I want two, but I also want the breach space bonus stuff. And I'm like, oh shoot, that's right, I don't even have an option for that. But that makes a bunch of sense. So it was thrown in.
Politics aside and gatekeeping aside, the other thing other than money that Indiegogo is better at is the add-ons when you get a perk in your shopping cart.
I agree. Yeah, I've used both. I can go into that a little bit later on if you guys want, but or even off the air. I'll leave it at that for now.
That's fair.
Okay. We got the Choose Any 4, which is straightforward as well. And then we got, so the bargain bundle here, boy. Okay, so this is for people like with crowdfunding campaigns who might be starting. And they're going to be printing their first batch of books. So you might think that if you order a small run of 250 books, that you're going to get 250 books you can give to backers. That is not the case unless you're the kind of crowdfunding creator who's going to send a backer a shitty copy. So you're going to get damaged copies in these boxes. Sometimes it's just like a ding here or there, and if it's like a shallow ding, that's kind of it can be acceptable, but for me, that's the bargain bin bundle. So if I see one ding in the spine of a book, I just started putting them in a separate pile, and I'm like, I got to move these somehow. Like, I need to get something from these, otherwise they're just going to get shredded, So the bargain bundle came up, and then there's like, oh man, in the last batch, like issue 5, I'm like, I found a new printer across the company. I'm saving like 33% off of the prices, and I ordered double, so I got 500 units. But I lost about half of those boxes that they were dropped, or the shipping just, I don't know what they did. Again, were you kicking these around? Were you
by the way, you can come.
Were you playing catch with your forklifts? Like, I don't understand what you did. Why did 2 boxes come to me with like split? They were split red. One whole corner was just open. I was like, oh, there go all the corners of those books, right? That's like 25% of that box.
I would have sent that back. I'd have been like, no.
I lost like 200 issues in this one. So, and we get to the point where they're not even bargain comics, Does
the printer not insure their stuff when they send it?
I don't know, but I recorded a video while opening the box, so it's, I'm definitely gonna contact them and say, no. I opened this. I get it if it's not their fault, it was like the shipping company, but here's the thing.
They have insurance. That's I think what Sai's getting at.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Printers have insurance with whatever shipping company they use because they're the ones that chose it. Where are you trying to go, dude?
Well, right, and so you would send them the video, and then they would make the claim.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try that, dude, because
you should.
Oh man, I like that's too much. Like,
don't eat it. Don't eat it. Don't ever eat it. I mean, doing what you're doing, that kind of helps customers, but still you're taking at least somewhat of a loss, if not just a loss on profit, by marking them down to customers. But I mean, with that substantial a number, just Jesus, no.
No.
Like it makes sense if you've got 20. Then 20 is maybe not worth it. But if you have 200, like that's
we're talking like entire like this whole like the whole corner of a book just like folded. I'm like, that's not even like the floppy piece. It's like the spines twisted all apart. I'm like, no, that's not going anywhere. That's firewood. That's like essentially firewood.
Kindling.
I'm lighting a cigar and drinking whiskey outside while burning my comics. I'll do a video of that. No.
Hopefully they use non-toxic ink.
Oh my god, I burnt one thing once where I was like, I don't think the flame is supposed to be that color. Should I be sitting back?
Is Hugo laughing with us?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh jeez.
I'm sorry.
I will say though, the bargain bundle, I haven't seen anyone else do this, but like why not? Like if you got copies that you're just gonna put away, or like I don't know, you don't feel good giving them, like just make them cheaper. You're either gonna lose money because you're gonna shred them, or you're going to lose money because you're gonna give them for cheaper, right? And it's even the one with the really busted up ones. I'm thinking I might have like a $1 bundle. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like, if you really don't give a shit, you want to cut craft, you want to like
you got $1. Here you go.
Do whatever you want with it. So I mean, we'll see for future campaigns.
Yeah, well, just keep in mind the printer might want them back for their claim.
That's true.
I will make sure I contact them first before I
try to get your money back first before.
Yeah. So yeah, we got to choose 5, so that one's standard, just because. And we have the bargain bundle. Again, I'm already preemptively thinking these are going to come. At least I'm going to have 10 damaged here. I think I put a limit on 10 there because I don't know how many
You
you're
did.
right damage. So, but we'll see. And if they don't, then hey, you get a good copy of these ones plus the dinged up the other ones. And then we have the print bundle 1 to 6. Which
the perfect 6.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and this is a matter of in the last 30 days is when I hope this one, like, it's not that I hope, it's the data tells me that this is when this one starts to peak up. Yeah. So, and it's of course the more of these that are made, I'm starting to reach that point where I know as like a user, as a customer, the price point is becoming problematic even to me. But it's a scenario where it's like, but I have no choice. Like I can't lose money on these units as an indie press printing 250 to 500 units. So
this is only $6 a comic.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm still trying to make them as affordable as possible when there's like 9 of them. Like I'm thinking in the future campaign, it's like a unique person who really loves indie comics that will drop $100 like on a package of things, right? So I understand like the magical number for the customer on crowdfunding is like $25 American. So I don't know, something, you know, the outrageous Canadian, but it's still a matter of you still. I mean, this is already 37. I feel like I'm hitting I'm wall here, and the data will let me know at the end, right? I'll see that it was really good every time it was a $25 package or option. But as soon as it was swayed off of that, it's lower than that happy point. So I gotta see what this does.
I get what you're saying, but don't undervalue yourself, especially with oversized comics, because you're not selling a floppy here, and you do need to, especially if you took time off work to do this stuff. Yeah. I mean, the success will happen if you have to just overprint and sell them elsewhere. Even after your campaign's done.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, and then this one is the same print bundle, but with the bonus pack, the breach space unit.
Yeah, because even at that price point up here, I mean, of just over $6 American per, I mean, once you get to 9, you're only talking $56 if you do the change. So 60 for 9 comics that are oversized plus bonus materials. It's
good hearing you say that, right? Like from an American perspective, because it's I don't have that, right? For me, it's like, I see the number, I'm like, poof. Yeah.
If you were doing, like a 32-page comic or something like that, I could see you selling it for maybe 15 per comic, but that would be 15 per comic. If you wanted to do a bit of a stop trying to eat my shirt. If you wanted to do a bit of a discount, because
the parrot's done one of those paralyzing like kung fu moves where it like froze Shay. Oh, sorry. You're back.
You just totally lagged.
Sorry, you can't. My internet sucks. But you can't go from 15 per comic, which seems fair, down to like $6. Like that is such a steep discount. That's so much more than you should do for sure.
Well, at this point, I can't go in reverse.
No. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying for future.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Reference.
And I will also say, like, I mean, I'm only doing singles with this one because the trade just wasn't flying. Like, I would have lost so much money. Like, I'm not even talking production costs. It's like the printing of a trade would have been thousands of dollars, and it was just not worth me doing 3 campaigns with that potential loss. Is from a marketing perspective, even, or me testing this out for 1 or 2 years, because I have to pad these campaigns. I would have done all of that in 1 year, but what lessons would I have really learned with 3 tests under my belt? This gives me 9 tests, so it's a bit of a balance, right? But my future campaigns, my preference would be to go trade straight up. Like I don't think I'd do single issues again, based on the evidence of any recon I've done, any research I've done. Trades are just way more. They're both beneficial from the customer standpoint. From a price point and stuff like that, you're going to get more for that bang for your buck. Your shipping is going to be better. But from a production standpoint, you might pay more to like produce the thing, but the bandwidth of possibility is much greater when you're selling a trade for that magical price point. I feel like they're shared a lot more often. that's at least true even from the Kickstarter perspective. Like that first campaign that failed, it got way more traction. So their algorithm favors the trade as well. So there's that.
Yeah. To be honest, I completely agree with not changing course when you're in progress. What I would probably do if I were you, and I had 9 books that I was going to do total, is at the end of this, I would probably put them in like 3 collected works, 3 comics a piece. And that's when you could really do your price point. Like instead of like, 6 times 3. So instead of $18-19 for them, that's when I would knock it up to 25 or 30. Because if you look at the US cost of graphic novels, you're looking, 25, 30 on some of the better ones anyway. And to be honest, for the most part, the art and really the story that you're getting for most indie comics are going to beat the big 2 right now anyway. So
I don't disagree. So I mean, yeah,
it might be lesser known characters, but you're going to get better quality.
Yeah,
that's always the hurdle. Is the I mean, if you're an unknown creator like I am, and it's an unknown property, and it's like, I mean, that just the environment itself is a little bit sketch sometimes. There's a lot of navigating to do, but the reward opportunity is just, in my opinion, it's good for all sides. This is a perfect era right now for all of this stuff to get. Everyone's investigating a way to go get through this, and finding the way that they fit into it and the way that they just want this stuff to develop, the hobby to develop. This is it. I mean, it's going to be crowdfunding. That's the future for all of this. And then 10 years from now, I mean, this can all be stories. Like people are just going to tell stories about this phase, the last 3 years. Yeah.
Well, and it's going to be all the pioneers that really kind of knuckled down and figured out the way forward for indie comics to give people better stories, to give people better art, to be more customer centric, and to, stop the proselytizing and political agendas and all the SJW and all the bull crap that we're getting now from the people who did it for DC and Marvel way back before DC and Marvel were a thing, and they had to do the same thing that we're doing now.
It's this weird phenomenon to me, and it's not just this space, but it's people who don't understand how the internet works is something that bothers the hell out of me. Like in my real day job, in this space, in other like YouTube, like just people who don't understand how the internet fundamentally works from a person to person, like a communication perspective. Man, it's a whole different layer. You gotta screen out the stuff that this culture is. Play with it or you get out. It's just I don't know. It's going to get really heated here, so I'm just going to come. I don't want to.
All I have to say is my condolences for Trudeau, and that's all I need.
Poke the bear.
So we actually did have one question that I wanted to address before we get too far past it. Yeah. So MM asks, is the comic about Edgar Allan Poe's story or something different?
Edgar Allan. It's the sister.
It's right. Yeah. Well, don't make assumptions. So
Nevermore.
Interesting question. Because yes and no is literally the only answer I can give here. I'm not trying to be intentionally ambiguous. This comic started as again, I'm trying not to spoil because like all of this is issue 6 to issue 9 is that part of the story that ties into maybe not, but definitely strongly influenced by Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. There's something on the crowdfunding page. It's on YouTube as well on my channel where it's a poem called Forevermore, and it's something that I actually wrote while writing issue 1. I wrote it as an experiment, if you will. It was not meant to be anything more than, hey, let's take Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Let's turn all of this entire poem into letters and numbers, essentially. So I basically deconstructed the poem into patterns. And then I'm like, let me try to create something based on these patterns. Basically the patterns were mirroring up syllables and sounds in the syllables, consonant, like kind of how things like flowed. And so I wrote this thing, and it was I was in my head. It was like this is a what if tale, or this is an else worlds. Like if this poem were to have continued, or if this poem was telling this narrative of this man who's getting visited by this raven, and and he's thinking about his dead wife or something, and this raven is basically being a troll on him. You know, it's like until he what dies, does he like what, like we don't really know really. There's a bit of an ambiguous interpretation of that poem. And I'm like, what if I take that ambiguous nature and then I go, okay, what if there's an Elseworlds tale here, and that something about that scene, not necessarily that particular scene, but the idea of that scene existed in some parallel world. And then what if that ended up in a parallel world, like in another? So there's like some meta kind of transitory stuff that goes on with that idea. But it eventually became bonus content in issue 1, because by the time I got to issue 9, and the first 6, when this was supposed to be 6 comics, 22 pages each, it was very much going to be just this story about Corvin Moore that's trying to break apart this drug operation in this fantasy world, in this fantasy setting, and that was going to be it. And then there was going to be supernatural shenanigans that happened inside the city. The second part of this was going to be what happens with this family, and then what that means to hit the next stage of Corvin's kind of experience as like trying to find himself. And you know, are you the villain, or are you the hero? And there's like a mix there. I don't want to get too deep into that, but it's one of those. Ultimately, when I try to figure out that second half, and I looked at this poem again, I'm like, shit, I think I can maybe weave this in somehow so that all of this matters. And it's a mystery at the end of the day. It's a horror mystery that when you get to the end, all the pieces sort of stitch together. Because when I work backwards, so I got to roll back here. So when I was on issue 4, and I'll get to this poem thing.
You're good.
When I was on issue 4, I realized I was not going to make it. Like I was not going to get this story told in 6 issues. That's another kind of one of these things where, like, if you're a new creator, like I love comics, I want to write comics, blah, blah, but you know what? Until you do it, you don't really find out when you got to put brakes on yourself. You got to set limits. You got to understand what the end goal is, so that you don't bust up your scope. Like you don't want to get scope creep in your project. That's a financial catastrophe too, potential catastrophe. And you don't want to, and the worst part of it is you don't want to get to a point where you go, I can't work on this project anymore. Like I can't afford it. And now you got like something that's like 60% complete, and you had to walk away. That's just demoralizing as all hell. So when I got to issue 4, and all of them were 22 pages at this point, I realized, no, I'm just going to do both of them. It's going to be one tale. And if I got it, it's like make or break for me in that point in my life. Like I had committed to 1 or 2 years off work to just focus on creative stuff and traveling and all that stuff. But I was literally like, I'm going to make or break. I'm going to Robert Kirkman this shit. Like it's either I'm going to go into 20 credit cards of debt here, or this thing is going to get done, because I wasn't the kind of person who just finished things. And so that was a big kind of trial by fire scenario for me. And so when I reassessed the story and I stitched it all together, I did it as 9. I'm like, I'm going to figure out 270 pages of this. And then I'm going to work backwards, and I'm going to start adding those extra 8 pages to issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4. And then I'm going to continue the rest of the series. And hopefully that happens in a very seamless manner, so that it doesn't feel jarring at all. And hopefully I've achieved that, but that's up to the audience to decide. But what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to weave things like this Edgar Allan Poe influence into the mix. And that might be part of the legacy, is how I put it without spoiling things, is that I basically worked out a spreadsheet that goes back 120 years, and it's generational. So I know what every character was up to for the last 120 years, essentially, so that if I wanted to tell more stories in the world, I could go anywhere in that timeline, and I could just flesh out this entire story. And if I had the opportunity to do so. So that was a kind of long way around to answer that question. I'm sure that happens with me. So, I mean, I did leave it to you to interrupt me. You got to put me back on the rails. That's how this.
I mean, when you say interesting things, I don't know how you want me to stop you from talking, because it was interesting.
I get really that's one of the biggest things this series. I'm super, well, and when I say that, you guys are gonna believe me, I'm super introverted, right? Like I'm what you essentially call like super introverted. But in the last few years, it's just I've had to develop my own personality and the way that I see interactions, and the way that like things like this, like streaming, like talking to people, getting online, starting a YouTube channel, for me was a great way of just figuring out my thoughts while I'm speaking, which is not easy for me to do. And so I meander a lot. And but having like I run a gaming channel, and it's just being able to just talk for an hour on to yourself, but there's an audience. Man, it helps you just put words, words on the surface, and just kind of like figure it out as you go, man. Don't be so nervous about talking to people and engaging, like, again, to new creators out there. And I haven't done a lot of it. You're the first ones to reach out to me, because that wasn't part of my strategy yet. So I'm like, when Shay contacted me, I'm like, shit, what do I do? Like, it was a bit of panic, because I was like, I don't know if I can do it live. Sorry, I'm not ready for this, right? But then I'm like, no, this is irrational, which means it's probably something I need to do. It feels irrational. It feels nuts. So yeah. I like going out of bounds with myself. It's like, if something feels like uncomfortable, you got to push yourself, man. Yeah.
Exactly. So. Well, and one of the big things too, I think that people don't realize is super introverted. Being introverted doesn't mean that you can't talk to people. Mm-hmm. Being introverted means that you don't get energy by being around other people. Like, after this stream, you're probably going to be like, I'm ready to crash. Like, you're done. You're tired. But the thing is a lot of people that are introverted, it's people don't talk to them because they think it makes them uncomfortable. And while for some it might, a lot of people who are super introverted have a lot of really cool things to say, because usually you sit around and you watch the world around you, you see what goes on, and you just kind of collect all this information, and then you start formulating your own thoughts and opinions and feelings about it. But then you're not like me. Like, I'll go around and tell every last person who has never met me, like, hi, how you doing? This is how I feel about XYZ. Thank you, Hugh.
You'll just parrot your way through a room. Yeah, no, I got it. I see the spirit animal in you.
But it's I definitely, like, I can understand why you have been able to think this through so much, is because you've witnessed and you pay attention and you kind of collect everything, and then you've used all of that to help your world building. You've used all of that to help your marketing and to fill in those areas that maybe you're a little less comfortable with, and here you are.
Yeah, that's a good point about an introvert that is always just there. You're in your head a lot, and you're sometimes you got a channel to put that, but other times you just spin. I've got another, I get super hyperactive too about things, so I've got a mix of, I'm an introvert who can get hyperactive about things. I also have hyperfocus. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, but it's like a form of ADHD, but it's where if I'm doing one thing, I just get stuck doing it. It's not that I get stuck, but I just don't really pay attention to eating.
It's very hard to pull you back out.
I got to do this thing. I got to figure it out, and it can be a hindrance, but it can also be a benefit for people who figure out how to sort of hone that in. And it's something that I figured out in my 20s, thank God, because it was derailing me as an introvert. But once I was like, wait, because in the startup world, man, if you can hyper focus and work 14 hours on one thing that you're supposed to get done in a week, and you're like, no, I'm getting it done tonight, and you just fuck sleep, and then you just get it done, and people are like, this guy's crazy, let's pay him more, right? Let's get him into a higher role. Let's give him a role for 2 people, let's give him a role for 4 people, and by the end of it, when I quit for Raven Nevermore, it was a team of 8, and it ended up me and another guy, and I was doing the other 7. So I was like, no, I'm going to do creative world stuff right now. I'm bouncing. I don't even care if you're offering me more. I'm out. So yeah. So you got to have a limit. You got to know where that limit is.
Yeah, unless they're offering you 7 times.
I'll suffer through my 20s for 7 digits. Are you kidding? I'll suffer for right now. Yeah.
Well,
then you can make all the comics you want.
Hell yeah, that's the dream, baby.
Just do whatever you feel like at that point.
Yeah.
So I really do think that Raven Nevermore is a very interesting looking project. It seems very, very well thought out, very well put together. And when we were first looking over your campaign, and I was like, this is 6 of 9, and Sai was like, he has 6 books done. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. This is way more put together than a lot of other people that we had on. I know, that's what I said.
We're used to interviewing people that are like, this is my first book of 73, or something like that. You're like, not
great.
6 in. We're like, yeah, you're gonna make 73 comics, whatever. Here's your head pat. Have a nice day. This comic looks great. Talk to us after you've lost your ass or your printer has lit your shit on fire or whatever. But
I will be right back. I gotta go deal with it.
That's fine.
That's good.
But yeah, coming into this, interviewing somebody who's already 6 comics in it and is already like legit done with the production process, if not the printing process. It's very refreshing because at least, first of all, you bring a seriousness to your project by not only having that commitment but having that follow through. So it's just really interesting, and the fact that you've planned all of this out. Not only that, but that you were able, so I'm a writer as well, but the fact that you were able to go back and insert those extra pages and not just have it as this really ugly bolt-on to the story.
Right.
Because I've had to go back and do edits, and it's really hard to get that same flavor, that same flow. Absolutely. when you're half a story away from it mentally already. So
I had to throw out pages. Like there were just scenes that I was like, well, I paid for these, and in my head I was like, fuck, I paid for these. Right. And it's like, I gotta find a way to use them, but the editor had to kick in, and you just go, it's just part of the process. I mean, this money is it lost? I don't know. It kind of taught me something along the way. Right. And it all really does become perspective. And I mean, being an editor is part of what I like in 2008 when all of this was going on with Breach Space and when Raven Nevermore kicked off. Is like, I wanted to edit things. I wanted to edit collections and stuff. And so I wanted to hone in on that, but I had to do that for myself, which really taught me the hard lesson of sometimes there's throwaway, but to make the best choice, you have to be willing to go, it's not wasted time, it's not wasted money. You learn something, take something positive out of this, and then move forward. And I mean, hopefully you never do it again, like hopefully you set up a mitigation strategy, and that's all I tried to do. There was but yeah, again, there's scenes where in my head I'm like, maybe this can be a separate book later on and I can expand on this, but
yeah, like a side story or something like that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
As a writer and kind of developing that talent and then switching over to trying to help people edit things, and kind of always being in other people's worlds, it's really helped me realize how much of the story that I'm currently stuck halfway through with, how much of that I can really just rip apart and take the best out of and to refashion it into something that I haven't, written myself into a corner with. And it really does give you perspective.
I will also say, I mean, Raven Nevermore had a multiple corners I wrote myself into, even by issue, I would say 8. At that point I had gotten the corporate job, and I was still kind of it was doing trickles. So the artist was catching up, but it was one of those, I got to figure this out because, Zersh is going to be ready to go.
Right.
So there's a bit of a panic from a production standpoint too, because I was like, I don't want to waste his time. And I mean, this guy's depending on me now for his time. So it's why I had side work and I did other kind of projects along the way that I could kind of keep him busy with. But, I just didn't want to lose. It was even the interaction we had. Like, I didn't want to lose that. There was a real great camaraderie and like working relationship I had. Like, I would love to keep working with him, but I knew that I wrote myself into certain corners because there were so many pieces in this narrative that not only because I went backwards and like filled in and I kind of set things up that were in like 8 issues, you're going to find out something that happened in issue 1. Right. But, but I was running out of time. I was running out of like book time, like issue pages time. And so when I had stickies, they covered an entire wall. I was like, I got to figure out how all of these things thread together. But there were like 3 or 4 things where I was like, I need this character to be meaningful in some way. And because I cut out certain parts of the story, it would have been another 6 issues I could have done, right? But it's one of those, like, for example, who you're dressed as, Alakai. Like, there's an entire story dedicated to what Alakai could have been and should have been, and maybe she's partly, but her story is somewhere else, hers and the Celestial guys. But that's not for this book. It would have derailed the focus of what Corbin was going through, and it gets so compressed near the last 3 issues because all of the pieces start to get closer and closer. And I wanted to get the sense in the reader that by every issue, it's like, oh, it's just kind of a drug story, like cartel, fantasy cartel sort of thing. But then it's like the second issue is like, oh shit, stakes might be real here. What's going on? Third issue is like, oh my god, no, okay, death is a real thing here. Like, it's like I was kind of playing with the trope of comics, like dying is like, does dying matter? So that's kind of what I was like playing with, is the idea of what do you do with this idea when comics keep killing characters and they just come back? What's the real story there, though? Is it that they just came back? Is that how you wrote yourself out of that corner? Because someone didn't want to use more creativity about the story thread that might have gone through that. And so I'm like, what if I blow that up? Like, what if I really make death and sacrifice and all of that be more than just death and sacrifice? But you don't know that until you get to 4, 5, 6, 7, and then all of that starts to stack together. And I think it's one of these stories where I couldn't possibly say like what the whole story is about, because it would ruin what I consider the subtextual narrative behind the entire tale. Is like, you can enjoy the story of Corvin becoming what Corvin's going to become, but then there's the other thing. For the people who want to analyze, like, for example, is Poe influencing this, is and A, B, C, D, E, like there's a bunch of subtextual influences that are Easter eggs, that are playing with comic book tropes, but playing with like sequential storytelling. Like the American comic book is all about being able to, like back in the 80s and 90s and before that, right? But it's like when the monthly issue dropped, it's like you got maybe a panel in there, or like you got a page in there where you're like, what was the point of that page? What was the point of that panel? Why did that person say, like, I mean, I'm going to bring up Darkhawk for a second. He's the best character in the world. But it's one of his comics will just be Beware the Curse of the Darkhawk. You're like, what the fuck? What is it? And then you never really find out about that. Or he takes off his helmet and you're like, what's the mystery behind the helmet? Well, it took you 50 issues to not tell me what the mystery behind the helmet. It's like 30 years. Like, yeah, it's like, but it's I remember as a teenager though, like that shit that made me want to come back and follow the story and the world building behind the comic of Darkhawk. So that's a silly example, but he is the best character in the world. But yeah, I kind of wanted to do that with the story as well. I wanted to tap into the spirit of that old storytelling technique, but also wrap it into more of I would call like more of a European comic storytelling, where it tries to it doesn't get so caught up in the conventional storytelling. I think it's very much a North American thing to tell stories a certain way. There's certain narrative patterns that we're all gotten used to, but I find in Europe they tell stories that are more from the heart. They're more about something outside of the main narrative, but you can enjoy the main narrative. There's just some thinking stuff that, if you want to take the extra time to kind of dig into something, it can be pretty rewarding as well.
Yeah.
I derailed again quite often there. I don't even know where that started. I don't know where that.
You know what? It's not a problem at all. Okay. I like the fact that you're so passionate about all of this, and that you have so many little bits that you kind of have thought about and that you want to share with everyone. I think that's really cool, and I really think that that's something that is going to help you to continue to create more for other people, because it's showing your personality, your care, your thought process, and that's what a lot of people are really interested in.
And I really appreciate hearing that. You have no idea, because we're going to start
dense stories. Like, I mean, what you're describing with your characters and your stories and the kind of offshoots and the things that you can do with it really reminds me of like Straczynski did with Babylon 5.
Hell yes.
Or even whoever the fuck it was with Dune. I just yeah. Or like Hitchhiker's Guide, just that kind of, it's so dense, and you could just go in any number of directions with it and just explore that universe. And that it sounds like what you did. And for I don't want to insult readers out there, and certainly not our audience, but for the smarter readers that really, dig that intricacy, it's really nice to find a book like that. So,
right. Well, I don't think that it's even so much, it's being able to bridge the gap between the two, where it's like, there's a lot there that's at face value, and there's a lot there that if you're just not thinking and you're not wanting to really delve into everything, it's great. But that if you have been following it and you've been paying attention and you have a more analytical mindset and you do kind of delve more into that stuff, you can find all of these other pieces. He's dropping feathers all over, by the way.
I didn't know he was on your head.
Oh, you didn't? He climbed up there.
Goes wherever he wants.
Yeah, he does what he feels like. You say hi?
Nice.
He's got a feather on his head that he pulled out. Oh, yeah, pretty wings. He's just showing off now. Now he realizes that people see him, and he's trying to be all cute. What, you trying to get down? Oh, you're such a jerk.
He's just trying to get in the frame.
He's, whatever. He's such an attention whore. Well, I'm so happy that we were able to get you on, and I can't think of any other questions that I could possibly have. I feel like you've handled this campaign and your pitch very, very thoroughly.
I was very nervous about how I was going to phrase all of that stuff because I've never had to really talk about it in kind of a condensed fashion. It's just been kind of a one-off talk here and there, but never really had a chance to sort of so thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to do that. And
absolutely.
Well, thank you for coming in. We hope we were gentle.
Way more gentle than I imagined. I totally anticipated getting crushed along the way. No. So it would have been a good challenge. It's all good.
No, we really were interested and intrigued by your project, and so it's cool to get to talk to you. I'm happy that we were able to have you on. Sai, do you have any final questions?
No, just to echo what you said, we don't put things on our show that we wouldn't buy ourselves. So that's why when we saw your stuff, we reached out to you. So, thank you for coming.
No, I really appreciate it, especially because of the it was a Kickstarter campaign was what kind of shocked me at first, right? I forgot his name already. Shoot. Oh God, from the Capybaras. But he said something in a video and I commented. Gilly, where it's this there's this bridge that's missing, right, between people who love indie comics, where when you're so focused on Indiegogo, you don't see what's on Kickstarter, and for a second here, just remove all the other stuff, the other noise that might be blocking you from exploring that, and just seeing what might be out there from a creator standpoint. You don't have to support the platform, but you can maybe try to figure out more about a creator that might be on a platform that you want to support. That's all up to you, right? But the creator, the creator that chooses the platform doesn't necessarily adhere to things, right? There's no this kind of the association factor that's going on right now.
Built by association.
Yeah, man.
Exactly what you're saying.
It's blocking people from discovering cool things. Not to say that Raven Nevermore is the cool thing you need to discover, but I surely encourage you to do so. But it goes both ways. You have people who are loyalists. I'm using that word very strong, very loosely here, right? But to Kickstarter, and they don't go to Indiegogo because that's its own thing now. That's got some sort of interpretation, right? That people no, just buy from wherever the hell you want and just assess the comic and the creator by the thing you receive, either the comic, the product, or the creator's attitude online or whatever the hell it might be. Don't box someone in, into interpretation. So again, that's what surprised me the most when you reached out. It's I don't know what you expect, but it's I just want to make sure.
So we don't necessarily care because there's certain things about various companies that Sai has opinions on, that I have opinions on. But when it comes to creators, I'm not going to automatically assume that all of the ins and outs of the drama that's been going on with X, Y, and Z just because I do. Because there's a lot of people who weren't clued in on it. There's a lot of people who maybe made a mistake initially, or there's people that have just said, that's shitty that happened, but that's not I'm finding that my customer base is largely here.
Or it's just not important enough to take a stand years later to shape my business decision. So.
Right. Well, and to potentially affect me, financially, because if this is where I'm getting pull and then I decide I'm not going to do this anymore because of something that happened however long ago, it's based on you and what you feel you're willing to accept or stand up for. I am not going to fault you as a creator for picking one side or the other. It might change some way how I feel about you personally, but as far as your comic goes and as your campaign and everything goes, that is what's the most important to us, is making sure that you have a good product, you're good to your customers, you care about what you're doing, and you're pushing forth good indie comics. That's what we care about. and that you're not a complete asshole.
Hey man, I got one main rule in life of all principles, right? Is just don't be an asshole. Like you can get so much out of life if you just don't be an asshole, man.
Right.
Well, I'm just fucked with that.
You
rule,
are so
Except
screwed,
Cyborg.
The Shays have spoken.
Oh shit, I'm outnumbered. Fuck this, I'm kicking you both. All right. Well, on that note, I do want to thank Shay 1 and Shay 2 for being
Whichever
here.
you want.
Exactly.
Can we get t-shirts?
No.
I love it. Anyway.
No, because they'll get damaged in shipping.
Oh,
That's so true.
Thank you for our audience. Thank you to our audience for coming along for the ride,
thanks,
and
everybody.
to all of you who are watching on replay. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Our channel is growing every day, and we couldn't thank you more. We can't thank you enough. That's what the fuck I'm trying to say. Fuck you. I'm trying to do 6 things at once.
Well, I mean, when you step on my toes for my end bit, what am I supposed to do?
Go ahead and do it.
Thanks everyone for coming out. We really appreciate you. Do not forget to go back Raven Nevermore. The link is in the chat. It is also in the channel description, and I believe we put the link to your YouTube there as well. If not, we'll update it.
Will be.
But yep, thank you so much, Shay, for coming on. It was great to have another Shay with me.
Yay! It was always great to have one more.
And thank you so much, Sai, for everything you're doing production value wise.
Yeah.
And we love all of you. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.